How Nike became a successful sports brand. You may find it hard to believe, but there was a time when Nike was not the undisputed king of athletic apparel. The success of Nike's branding strategy exemplifies the importance of using cultural elements to foster brand loyalty among target audiences. So just go ahead and do it. Maybe Phil Knight didn't think up this slogan, but at least he had the foresight to stick with it when he found Blue Ribbon Sports in his parents' basement in 1964, setting the groundwork for what would eventually become Nike. How did Nike become such a powerful sports brand, and how successful is Nike today? To find out, stay tuned to Success Stories, and without any further ado, let's get started. The most lucrative athletic brand in the world also has a deep and wide cultural understanding. Interbrand estimates the company's worth at $34.8 billion in 2020, $23 billion more than the next market leader, Adidas. From product-centric to consumer-centric. As a result of their own mistakes, Nike discovered the hard way that producing a superior product is not sufficient to ensure market domination. Nike understood towards the middle of the 1980s that something was lacking as sales began to plateau, despite the company having made consistent leaps in product innovation throughout the previous decade. Think of the Cortez, Waffle Racer, and Air Tailwind. In an interview with Harvard Business Review, Phil Knight stated that for years, we thought of ourselves as a production-oriented company, which means that we focused all of our attention on designing and manufacturing the product. However, we've come to the realization that marketing the product is the single most essential thing we can do. It was successful for Nike to establish itself as the pro's choice by relying on technological advancements developed in the lab to serve the company's core consumers at the time. These core consumers consisted of elite athletes. The issue was that Nike was putting all of its eggs in the basket of cutting-edge technological paradigms. The company was in a race against its rivals to develop the most compelling value proposition, and it was doing so by cramming ever greater functionality, price, or user experience into its most recent shoe. Knight, who was initially skeptical of the value of branding, believed that all Nike needed to do was concentrate on producing the finest product and the company would sell itself. It wasn't until 1988 that the company broadcast its first advertisement on television. Prior to that, it had exclusively promoted its shoes in specialized periodicals like Runner's World. In 1985, sales were below expectations. After suffering a loss in revenue of $200 million by the year 1987, Nike was compelled to carry out massive layoffs. Who would be its primary rival? Reebok. After suffering a humiliating defeat at the hands of Reebok, in particular within the aerobics industry, Nike came to the realization that it could no longer rely on technical paradigms to win over customers. Despite having a lower quality overall, the shoes manufactured by Reebok were outselling those manufactured by Nike. It would need to appeal to a new kind of customer, one that identified with the emphasis that Reebok places on being fashionable in other contexts besides the gym. Above all, there is a startling statistic. 60% of Nike products were purchased by people who didn't use them for the actual sport. Nike came to the realization that shoes were about a lot more than just having the fastest time at the track. Gaining an understanding of consumer culture through the lens of the fitness movement in the United States. In 1989, it was stated by the New York Times that Nike was making inroads in the marketing of shoes for the fashion-oriented customer, which was a field in which Reebok had been dominant. During the time period, Nike was marketing something that was much more significant than its footwear, a brand ideology. Nike, in close collaboration with the advertising agency Wieden & Kennedy, crafted a corporate philosophy that would resound strongly in the collective psyche of customers. By the 1980s, Reagan's myth of American exceptionalism was well underway. Gordon Gekko would proclaim on Wall Street that greed is good. MTV would revolutionize how music was consumed, and the United States of America would dominate the 1984 Summer Olympics. It was a very individualized obsession, in contrast to the previous popular movements of the 20th century, which were frequently tied to national sentiments. Fitness had become a popular movement, but it was in no way comparable to those movements. As a cultural indicator of status, Americans began to view physical fitness in the wearing of athletic apparel. Nike was able to establish a new brand concept as it collected material from the cultural vanguard. It took the swoosh logo, imbued it with the Nike philosophy of transcendence, authenticity, and individualism, and has been spreading that philosophy ever since. The sign of the swoosh, it's not just conceivable to transcendence, it's already there, simply waiting to be called out. The influence that a goal can have. From the very first Just Do It commercial, which aired in 1988, to Nothing Beats a Londoner, which aired in 2018, the advertising campaigns that Nike creates have an enduring appeal that transcends all boundaries. Nike's innovative strategies of meta-communication, such as the empowerment of the alienated individual, the use of celebrity to inspire awe in consumers, the appropriation of street subcultures, unorthodox advertising production techniques, and the significance of gender and race, demonstrate Nike's ability to deal with a variety of contentious issues while still maintaining its popular appeal. It takes advantage of contentious problems that are the primary focus of the discourse in the media so it can continue to have cultural significance. Its advertisements will occasionally be humorous, but more often they'll be taken seriously. They usually exhibit a strong emotional response. Nike's at the forefront of the cultural zeitgeist thanks to its almost supernatural ability to predict the future accurately. It knows which consumers it stands for and which customers it does not stand for, which allows it to establish affinity with those clients. This is similar to how Patagonia openly disdains Trump's prior presidency. In many respects, the campaign that Colin Kaepernick ran was prophetic, as it anticipated the race riots and the Black Lives Matter movement that would follow into the year 2020. It was purposefully provocative and controversial, and it was delivered in an authentic Nike tone of voice. It made it very obvious what position the company held, and customers rewarded Nike with a 31% increase in sales in the days after the campaign. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians, who are more strongly represented in Nike's consumer base than they are in the overall U.S. population, would theoretically be on board with Kaepernick's social justice activism because they're more strongly represented in Nike's consumer base than they are in the overall U.S. population. Perhaps cynically, it also made sense for Nike to run the campaign according to market research. The significance of being sensitive to other cultures. Having a profound understanding of culture is absolutely necessary in order to successfully build a connection with one's consumer base. Nothing Beats a Londoner by Nike was the advertisement that, in recent times, was responsible for the most talk to be generated across social media platforms. Ethnographic research played a significant role in the development of the screenplay, which was well praised for its raw, genuine, and ultimately compassionate message. In order to get to the bottom of what it meant to be a true Londoner, Wyden and Kennedy teamed up with On Road, a company that specializes in strategic insight. The team from On Road talked to hundreds of young people living in London. This was without a doubt the single most crucial thing they could have done to get the message of the campaign spot on. Brands are using orienteering to attempt to appeal to a global audience, but the problem with that is that the pleasure, the beauty, and the wonder of culture do not function like that. These days, customers view brands as extensions of their own personalities, and their purchases serve as votes of confidence in the products or services associated with these brands. Consumers will cancel their subscriptions to brands that do not effectively speak to them, and those brands do not make an effort to understand their core consumers and innovate culturally. This will cause many brands to go out of business. For the time being, the transcendence, sincerity, and individualism that are inherent to the Nike brand ring true with the company's core consumers. The risk, on the other hand, is that it will stop short of the goal because it will be unable to see beyond its own magnificence. But even Nike has a catchphrase for that: just do it. And that's it for today's video, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.